And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Friday, October 4th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, tip or donate, get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button to create a super chat of any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. I will acknowledge it, and it just makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So, let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So, we're going to start off the show. We're going to recap last night's game between the Falcons and the Buccaneers. That was probably the game of the year so far. So we'll get into that. Then in the second part of the show, I'll talk about the Bills-Texans game, Stephon Diggs playing against his former team. It's a big matchup between the Bills and the Texans, so we'll talk about it. Then in the third part of the show, we will preview the Sunday night game between the Cowboys and the Pittsburgh Steelers. In the fourth part of the show, we'll get into talking about the game in London between the Vikings and the Jets. And then in the final part of the show, we'll kind of go through the rest of the matchups for the weekend, as well as talking about the big matchups in college football. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about last night's game between the Falcons and the Buccaneers. So the Falcons, they won this game 36-30 in overtime. It was a back and forth game. Like I said, this game probably is game of the year so far. Very entertaining from start to finish. And let's kind of go through it. So the Falcons, they were coming off of a win against the Saints at the buzzer. Younghoe Koo kicked a 58-yard field goal to win the game. Falcons didn't score an offensive touchdown in that game, but they were still able to win at 26-24 over the Saints. And then for the Buccaneers, they were coming off of an impressive win over the Eagles, 33-16. And the Falcons' offense was kind of looking to find its footing because through these first 4 weeks, at times it looks like, hey, here we go. This is how it's going to be. And then, they go back to struggling. Like, they struggled against the Saints. They struggled against the Steelers to start off the year. The Eagles game, Kirk Cousins looked better in the second half of that game. It's just, and against the Chiefs, the first drive of the game, they went down the field and scored a touchdown. But, again, they were really looking to get it going. And this was the game where this offense really got it going. So the Falcons got the ball to start off the game. They went 7 plays, 70 yards. Second play of the game, Kirk Cousins hits Kyle Pitts for 32 yards. And Pitts had a good game. No touchdowns in the game, but still had about, I think, 88 yards receiving. We'll take a look at the box score in a second. But then Kirk Cousins connected with Drake London, who also had a big game for an 18-yard touchdown. So that made it 7-0 Falcons. However, the Buccaneers, they did answer. They went 9 plays, 63 yards down the field, 4 minutes, 18 seconds of time of possession, and Baker Mayfield connected with Mike Evans for a 2-yard touchdown, so that tied the game. Then the Falcons, they were driving, and it was interesting because they attempted a field goal with Younghoe Koo, and he missed a 46-yarder. However, there was a defensive offsides, so I was like, okay, well, he's going to make this one, right? He ended up missing that one too. So Falcons ended up not getting any points. Then the Bucs, they went down the field, got into field goal range, and Chase McLaughlin kicked a 53-yard field goal to make it 10-7. Then the Falcons responded with the touchdown drive. Part of it was set up by a 22-yard pass play from Kirk Cousins to Cordero Hodge, and this is not the last time we will be mentioning his name. And then Cousins connected with Darnell Mooney, and he threw that into a tight window. I mean, there were 3 Buccaneers guys there, but Cousins fitted in that window. Mooney made the play and got the touchdown. This was on 3rd and 13. A 24-yard touchdown reception, and that made it 14-10. Then the Buccaneers, they answered 3 plays, 44 yards down the field, and Baker Mayfield connected with Mike Evans for a 23-yard touchdown, so that made it 17-14. Then the Falcons, they tied the game. They went 8 plays, 34 yards. Younghoe Koo kicked a 54-yarder to tie it. Then the Buccaneers, they answered with another touchdown. Rachaad White, a 56-yard run to set it up. Looked like he was going to take it to the house, but got tackled at the Falcons' 15-yard line. And then later in the drive on 3rd and goal, Baker Mayfield connected with Sterling Shepard for a 4-yard touchdown. They were kind of short at receiver last night. There was no Trey Palmer in this game and still no Jalen McMillan. So Sterling Shepard, he stepped up, made a play last week, or a couple plays last week against the Eagles, and he gets a touchdown here from Baker Mayfield. So that made it 24-17. And that was the score at the half. Again, very entertaining. Then we go to the second half. Bucs punted, and then the Falcons on their first drive, another Young Waku field goal for 48 yards. So I did have the score at 24-20. It was 24-20 at one point, but that ended up not being the final score. Then the Buccaneers, they answered with the field goal. Chase McLaughlin from 32 yards out to make it 27-20. And then the Falcons, a couple of big chunk plays, 22 yards to Ray McLeod, a 28-yard run by Bijan Robinson. And on 4th and 4 from the Buccaneers 12, Kirk Cousins connected with Darnell Mooney for his second touchdown. This is from 12 yards out. And that tied the game. Then the Bucs responded with another field goal by Chase McLaughlin, a 53-yarder. That made it 30-17. And then Young Waku's field goal got blocked. And you kind of thought at that point that the Bucs, maybe were going to win this game. And they started driving. I mean, they kept running the football, and, they were playing the clock really well. And you thought, well, they're going to get it down, and this is going to be the end of the game. But so Bucky Irving, 1st and 10 from the 32, he ends up fumbling. Great play by Jesse Bates. He knocked the ball out, and the Falcons recovered the fumble, and they had a chance to go down the field and either tie it or potentially win the game at that point. And Kirk Cousins got sacked. There was first Tyler Algier ran the football. He lost 2 yards. Then Kirk Cousins got sacked, and then it was 3rd and 19. Kirk Cousins connected with Algier later in the drive for a 4-yard pass play. So it was 4th and 15, and then he gets intercepted by Levante David. So at that point, I thought, okay, now the game is over. But it was not. The Falcons still had all 3 of their timeouts, and they used them. So what was interesting was, so on 1st and 10, Rachaad White loses 3 yards. Then there was a penalty on the Buccaneers that really set them back. I think, so there was a holding on the Bucs, but I think there was a face mask call that was missed that would have offset the penalties, but that ended up not happening. Then it was 3rd and 25, and they kind of just ran it with Bucky Irving for 1 yard. But however, on that play, Mike Evans was wide open, and Baker Mayfield didn't see him. And that would have been a walk-in touchdown. But Baker didn't see him. The Falcons, they were anticipating the run, and Baker just didn't see Mike Evans. So they ended up punting, and the Falcons, they got into field goal range. They were able to clock it with 1 second left because it was 2nd and 10 from the Bucs 43, and Kirk Cousins connected with Drake London. They were able to do it. And that made me think back to the 49ers-Cowboys playoff game from a few years ago where they were not able to clock it. And it's really interesting how other teams are able to do it fine, but the Cowboys just weren't able to do it. I just thought that was funny. That was where my mind went on that. So Young Waku ended up kicking a 52-yard field goal, but there actually was a delay of game penalty right before that. So you thought, oh no, is Young Waku going to miss it again? But no, he didn't. He made it from 52 yards. And we went to overtime. And the Falcons got the ball. And Drake London ends up getting hurt. So Cordero Hodge has to come back in. And he scores the game-winning touchdown from 45 yards out. And the Falcons end up getting the win. Kirk Cousins, props to him. They really got it going in this game, this offense. He ended up passing for 509 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. He was unbelievable in this game. And this is why, now he's not going to do this every single week, but this is why the Falcons got Kirk Cousins. If they had Desmond Ridder, they're not winning this game. They're not. But with Kirk Cousins, he was a difference maker in this game. Again, he's not going to throw for 500 yards every single week, but this is very encouraging that he got it going along with this offense. And, the Falcons, they only ran the ball for 73 yards. Bijan Robinson only had 61 yards on the ground. Algier only 12. But here are the stats for the pass catchers. So Cordero Hodge only had 2 receptions for 67 yards and a touchdown. But the 45-yard touchdown to win the game, that made a difference. Ray McLeod had 6 for 66. Kyle Pitts, 7 for 88. Darnell Mooney, 9 for 105 yards and 2 touchdowns, targeted 16 times in this game. And I forgot to mention, he had a drop. I think it was the second to last drive of regulation. That, if he catches that, this game might be over in regulation. That was a big drop. You thought that was going to end up costing the Falcons the game, but that was not the case. And also Drake London, 12 receptions on 13 targets for 154 yards and a touchdown. Actually, I want to see, where was that crucial drop? Because I think it was on the missed field goal attempt, I believe. Let's see. Yeah, so it was on 3rd and 6 with 6:42 left in the game, and Mooney dropped it. That was at the Tampa 36-yard line, and that's what led to Younghoe's field goal being blocked. So you thought, yeah, this is it for the Falcons. But no, that was not the case. They end up getting the win, and then for the Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield, not a ton of yards passing, but he was good last night. 19-24, 180 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. The Bucs ran the ball for 160 yards. That's something that they've struggled to do so far this year. Rashad White, 72 yards on the ground, 44 yards on the ground for Bucky Irving. Baker Mayfield at 42 yards on the ground. Chris Godwin, 5 for 64. Mike Evans, 5 for 62 and 2 touchdowns. Cade Otton had 3 for 44. The Bucs defense, 4 sacks in this game. I mean, the offensive line gave Kirk Cousins protection, and, they are missing 2 starters. So, this was big that they were able to do this. And then for the Falcons, they only had 1 sack of Baker Mayfield. But actually, Baker got hurt in this game. Got twisted up, getting tackled, and that could have been a lot worse. Thankfully, he was okay, was able to finish the game. So, should be good to go for next week. But that could have been a lot worse. But thankfully, he was, like I said, he was okay. But yeah, this was a big win for the Falcons. I mean, it looked like that they were going to lose, but they snatched victory from the jaws of defeat. And now both teams are tied at 3-2 for the NFC South lead, and the Saints, they gotta win on Monday to keep pace with these two teams, because right now again, it's week to week, the NFL, but right now these are the two teams battling it out for the division. The Saints, they started off 2-0, now they're 2-2, but they got to figure it out. I mean, it doesn't get any easier for them because they take on the Chiefs, but got to find a way to get a win to keep pace with these two teams, because right now these are the two front runners right here. And the fact that this offense got it going for the Falcons, that is very encouraging. And, once you get your offensive line fully healthy, and Kirk Cousins continues to play like this, I mean, and now he's building that rapport with his weapons. You got to like where they're going. But both defenses a little concerning. The Bucs, they're still missing guys on defense. Antoine Winfield Jr., also Jamal Dean got hurt in this game, so that wasn't good. But for the Bucs, I mean, that is kind of a gut punch, that loss. But they got to bounce back. But their schedule, I was looking at it, it does get tougher. So, and for the Falcons, I know they take on the Panthers next week. So, and for the Buccaneers, who do they play next week? Well, I'll just run through their schedule really quick. So actually, they take on the Saints in New Orleans. Then they take on the Ravens and the Falcons at home, at the Chiefs, and then home for the 49ers week 10. That is a tough schedule coming up. And, Baker Mayfield and that team and the Bucs have played well this year. So hopefully, you don't lose all those games. I don't anticipate they will, but they're very tough games on the schedule. So, let me know what you guys think, though, about this game. Very entertaining. One of the best games we've had on Thursday night in a while. I know a lot of people were saying that. But yeah, let me know in the comments any of your thoughts you have from it. So we're going to take our first break of the show, and then when we come back, we will talk about Stephon Diggs facing off against his former team, Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills taking on C.J. Stroud and the Houston Texans. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.